So Brad asked me to give me what is the evidence that the resurrection didn't happen. And of course, I'm not going to be able to provide evidence that the resurrection didn't happen, as I said before, since there's no real historical evidence about it of saying one way or the other. There's simply a lack of anything. And from that, we can't say that the resurrection did or did not happen from a historical basis. All we can say is we have a lack of evidence, and we can't say anything about it at all. While there certainly would be some kind of oral creed or some kind of oral tradition of what was said, we have absolutely no idea what it was and how different it is than what was written down. The fact that people told stories at the time does not mean that they had to be consistent in all the stories, and that these stories did not change with time, did not have aspects added to them, such as later on having people rise from the dead that did not exist in the previous stories. When a story is made up, you oftentimes see it bringing up. Now, Brad mentioned how we have 28,000 documents. The thing is, these are not 28,000 independent sources of people writing about Jesus. This is generally a handful of documents copied over 28,000 times. That would be like saying the evidence for Mormonism is overwhelming because we can find millions of books of Mormons around today. The fact that we have so many copies of it says nothing. What's important is, when was it written? Was the sources biased? And how historically accurate can we say these sources were? There's no evidence to suggest that any of the Gospels writers had any training in history, that they actually knew how to properly cite sources, or that they even did any research when writing it down. All we know is that they were leaders of a church who obviously have a very strong bias and a reason to be there. We do know that the claims did change with time, that nobody was talking about bodies of saints being resurrected, brought it up before, and that these claims were added on later on. Could it be in an oral tradition? Sure. But from a historical point of view, we cannot say that it actually did have a claim till much later on. Also, we have the claims that, all the gospel authors, going out and even times being martyred or taking the religion very seriously. We don't actually know when the Gospels, we don't know when many of them were actually killed. In fact, the stories of them being martyred did not appear until 150 AD, which would have been over 100 years after the event would have already happened. Many of the claims of how they suffered from the persecutions were written about solely by Christian authors trying to explain to others that we are being persecuted, and this was decades after the persecution actually happened. There is obviously a very clear reason for bias here. Now, what I'm looking for from a historical point of view is not everyone from a church talking about how their Savior resurrected. I'm looking for the opposition. I would like a Roman to come by and talk about the dead walking into Jerusalem. I would like evidence from I would like a Jew who's coming to try to disprove Christianity and say, well, sure, there was a bodily resurrected Jesus, but here's how it could have been faked. No, none of this is told to us. All we have are big blank spaces for what the event should be, and the only way we have these blank spaces filled up are by the authors decades after the fact with a clear bias. And this does not constitute historical accuracy, and it certainly does not say that we can say historically Jesus rose from the dead. All we can say is historically there was a church, there was persecution, but we can't actually say anything about Jesus himself.